few minutes with you pertaining to this. Paul says in Corinthians, he says, "I planted, Apollos watered." You know, and you guys at Corinth, you debating about who you follow, and I just want you to know that we're instruments of God. We are not the masters. We are family and ministers just like you are, and we are His instruments. And when He uses that agricultural term, He says, "I planted and Apollos watered." He was saying we fulfill different roles. When I was with you, I couldn't get you any meat. All I could do was feed you milk because you were too fleshly. You couldn't take it. And when Apollos came along, the Bible describes in Acts 18 that he was eloquent and competent, and he fulfilled a different role. But I want you to know it was all God. The verb tenses in the Greek language present something to us that the English does not capture. When Paul says, "I planted and Apollos watered," it's in aorist tense. Indicates an action that was completed. When we were with you, there was things happening with us and you. But we're gone now. But when he refers to, but God gives the increase or adds the growth, that word gives carries with it the idea of there was action then and the action continues. So although we've left, let me tell you, God continues. Which got me to thinking a little bit about what else he said. He said, unity keeps the evangelism and outreach fire stoked. Now he who plants and he who waters are one, he says in 1 Corinthians 3:8. One. Do you know when a family of God is experiencing that sweet spot? It is amazing the immense accomplishments. I mean, it's just amazing what's done. And when I look back and I was preparing these slides for this first session, I was just amazed what we've accomplished together and what this church has through the years. Let me just share a few things with you. This is the Chidobe well. You know, we had the chili supper last year, and there was a village close to the Zambia border that needed water, and they needed it desperately. And this is an area where there are multiple villages. And so the technology, in Africa right now is just, I mean, it's just streaming ahead, and that's not a pun, but I'm just saying it's just going. And so now solar is real. In fact, the Christian school that we are going to build is going to be totally solar, just about. So there is a church there that serves several villages. And amongst those villages are widows. Several widows and several special needs children. And they don't have any Social Security. There is no safety net. And so they said, is there a way we could drill a well? Well, when we raised the money here, the chili supper, I said, we got the money, let's do it. This was more expensive than usual. And so we accumulated the tank and the solar panels. We drilled the well. Here we are with the tank and the solar panels. And I want you to know the reason they want that is, of course, to serve clean water to the communities. But the other thing is that these ladies with no Social Security, they said they're going to have two gardens, one for the community to come and work, tapping into the water. And the second garden is the youth of the congregation and the men are going to grow a garden. And they are going to sell these vegetables, and they have opened up an account, and that goes into basically these widows' Social Security. Now, doesn't James talk about something like that? And let me just tell you, this area, by the way, this is wildlife area. Brother Giovanni, who is one of the song leaders, an amazing man in his late 60s, was walking home one night. You don't walk home late at night you just don't walk when the sun goes down in that area. There's everything there. The big five, it's there. And two hyenas start following him. And I said, well, what did you do? Because he's speaking to me. He said, I just told them to get away, man. So apparently he must have conveyed some sort of strength, And then the Sunday we were there, when we had this opening, the Sunday we were there, a teenage girl, 15 years old, came forward and asked for prayers of thanksgiving because she was walking home. And she said, as I walked home, there was a lion looking right at me. And she said, I just didn't react. I just kept walking and praying silently. And she said, I finally got to my hut, and I want to thank the Lord. So within that area, they were getting water. And you made that possible. I want you to see this one. This is Trevera Orphanage. This is one of the second wells. It was the second well we did, one of several wells, but this was the second one that your money we used to purchase this well. And this serves a community there, but it also is an orphanage that the church has of 50 kids. And we were able to do this well. They were drinking dirty water. You provided clean water. They were celebrating their clean water. Just want to thank you all so much for what you did. Oh, and by the way, we're so glad you come, and you can also see the wells that we're doing. I love this one of Mike and Curtis. And we appreciate all those that have come. This is a well at the Akulamani Church of Christ, and when they had a drought 2 years ago, you know that the whole community, all the water was shut down in the city of 1.4 million. And only the communities that had wells, that was the only source. And they said that well pumped from 5 in the morning till 9 at night. People were lined up constant, no break. And they said that well never went dry, So, of course, needless to say, all the impact that we've made in the community. These are the countries that we've affected. We've drilled wells in Swaziland, and I want to thank Curtis for doing these maps for us. We have in South Africa, in Zambia, in Lesotho, in Zimbabwe, and that's 100-mile radius right there. All these wells were affected in 4 countries, and that's why we've been able to plant 39 churches from these wells. It's made all the difference in the world. And so here we are. Paul says, I planted, Apollos watered, but I want you to know it's all about God. He gives the growth. He gives the increase. And when we walk away, or we have to be somewhere else, or we leave this earth, I want you to know God is still working. How many years? Even when I was here as a minister, that Bill and I shared with funerals that have gone on to their home, gone on to their eternal home. Precious people that made a difference when they were here, and they were participated in this work of the church. They saw it as something serious and real, part of their lives, and they went on, and yet the church continues. Why? Were they valued? Of course they were, but God is the one that gives the increase. Other people step into the gap. Final thought. Well, let me just show Amazon Clinic, before I get to the next thought. Got this picture too. I told them in the first session that this has been voted the number 1 rural clinic in Zimbabwe for the last 2 years, and we've only been open 2 years. But over 6,000 children have been immunized, and it was right now, and all these figures are moving, not moving targets, but they're not concrete because it can change from month to month. But right now we've had 136 babies born there. Yes, it's a fertile area. What can I say? How do you support that? I told them in the first session that there is no way that we would build a clinic or a school unless we can support it there. Yes, we raise money to build it here, but we support it there. And here is our agricultural program that is supporting the clinic 2 years into it. We are totally supported. We're getting no funds from the U.S. whatsoever. And we're planting cabbage there. And do you know all those people there? They're all entrepreneurs because they're not our employees. They're all brothers and sisters that we've given a job, and they all have a percentage take. And so they are on it because they were all unemployed. And we are thankful for that. And so, of course, how do we pump our water? Well, we've got our solar panels, and we're making it happen because they have 9 months summer and 3 months early spring. Plenty sunshine. So I just want you to thank you all so much for what you have helped accomplish. We've all done it together, and we've done it for God's glory. And there's not a one of us that stands up and says, yes, I am the person, I am the man. No, because it's God that gives the increase, Paul said. You know why we keep up this momentum? Because of this final thought, and that's the assurance that we have on this journey. You know, when we gave our lives to Jesus Christ, there was a covenant. The covenant, this agreement, this understanding, this guarantee that all Christians have with God Almighty. It's a covenant of forgiveness. How many times have we read this verse? This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. How many times on a Sunday morning we've heard that? Because that's our covenant that we have with him. A covenant of forgiveness, a covenant of fellowship. He's a God that desires relationship. In 1 Corinthians 1:9, God is faithful, by whom you were called into the fellowship of his Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. It's a covenant of fulfillment. God will do this, for he is faithful to do what he says, and he has invited you into a partnership with his Son. 1 Corinthians 1:9. You think about this journey that we have. It's a journey of assurance. It's not crossing my fingers and I hope I'm going to make it to heaven. Oh, come on. I'm going to commit my whole life to something like that. That's just a chance. We have this covenant with him. And with this covenant, because he's true to fulfill it, there comes the word reunion too. We all have family reunions. Somebody told me the new year has begun and we're already into February. Well, before you know it, you'll have your family reunion somewhere here in Texas in June or July. It might be an encampment. It might be a camp. I don't know. But you know how some of them can be. You know, when you have the matching T-shirts, smorgasbord of food with mother and grandmother's secret recipes. You've got, when it all happens and people are arriving, suddenly tables have uncles and aunts sitting around and dominoes come open and cards and then cousins go get balls and they play basketball and football and someone says, I've got horseshoes and there is dad grilling, you know, music blasting, sun shining, and before you know it, it's over. And they're sad faces because it's gone so quick. And some are going to leave. And some of the elderly, mostly, well, some of them won't come back next year because either they won't be physically able to do it or maybe they'll take their last breath between this reunion and the next one. But for the Christian, the reunion for us is everlasting. I did a funeral 2 weeks ago for Thomas Elkins. I graduated from Harding. I felt like I was given a good foundation. I had Neil Pryor and Jimmy Allen for teachers. And yet my first funeral I wasn't really ready for because it was a 8-year-old boy who was coming to church and he was in the yard and then got onto the highway and was knocked down by a car traveling 55 miles an hour. And I'll still see Audrey, the mother, holding her lifeless son in the middle of Highway 107. Thomas was his father. And Thomas wasn't interested in God. But Thomas had the loss of Ricky. And then some years later, his wife would die of heart disease. And he lived long. He lived until he was 83. But during that time, God worked on him. And he changed. And I remember a decade ago when someone said, Dorian, you will not believe it. Thomas came Sunday morning. They asked me to come back for a special day. And I'll never forget it. Thomas serving me the Lord's Supper. Which tells me finishing strong is awesome. Of course, we don't know when it's going to finish, so now is the time. Two things. Thomas and I had a relationship when I was there as a young minister at that congregation. He loved me because he wanted to see I'm a foreigner and I'm in a farming community. What am I going to do? And yes, I got on a tractor and I help a guy put his corn and soybeans in. I helped him do that. And Thomas appreciated that. And then one night I told him I love to play rook. And he was a rook fanatic. In fact, he was a pro at it. And we bonded. But all that bonding almost was a shallow compared to the commitment that he makes later in life. I guess my point is that the reunions here on earth, temporary, momentary. The reunion in heaven, when we say goodbye to loved ones that have gone on, that separation is temporary. Our reunion is everlasting. Can there be a better global message than that? And so whether we're in Nacogdoches or whether we're in Africa, we take this powerful message to the world. And as long as Jesus tarries, let's not faint. Let's, in our loving, caring way, let them know there's assurance on the journey. It's promised by a God who created everything. And he wants to be with us together in that place that he has prepared. What an invitation. And we extend that now as we stand and sing.